Game of Thrones had families fighting over very dumb things like pointy chairs and who gets dibs on your sister. But there are two families who I would argue are the dumbest fighters, grudge holders of the entire bunch, and that is, of course, the Blackwoods and the Brackens, the proverbial pick-me's of the Riverlands who just like, no, I'm right, no, you're both wrong, shut up, just shut up. Like, yes, one of you is aesthetically a little more pleasing to the eye, and I probably like a little bit more, and so, like, it's not very fair considering they're both basically the same house, but we'll get to that. It's the Blackwoods, they're a little better. Orange and red, what is this color scheme? And no. But what makes the Blackwood and Brackens feud interesting by Westerosi standards is just the length that it has existed. This feud has existed since before, like, recorded history was technically a thing. The feud goes back to the Age of Heroes, an age where we have lots of legends, but there is literally no, like, hard, concrete recorded history. The origins of the feud even can't be decided upon because each family has a decidedly different view on how the feud started. So let's go over what they can agree upon to begin with. So back in the day in the Age of Heroes, this was back when Westeros was broken up into hundreds of kingdoms. Just like, if you could control your little plot of land, congratulations, you were king. This is mine now. I'm king of the rock. Bonus points if you have the Harvey Firestein voice. You know, Milan, I am Yao, king of the rock. You know, throw it in references, it's bits, it's fun, we're having fun. Anyway, it's the Age of Heroes, there's 100 kingdoms around, and the kingdoms are all ruled by first men families. So, both the Brackens and the Blackwoods can trace their families back to the first men specifically. Now, this is where the stories start to diverge just a little bit. So, if you ask the Brackens were petty kings in the Riverlands, so they ruled, you know, their own, like, little tiny chunk, with some different families as their vassals, and the Blackwoods were one of those vassals. But then one day, the evil Blackwoods usurped the Brackens and took over their lands, and then the Blackwoods became the kings and ruined the Brackens. Mwahaha, mustachio-twirling villainry. Ooh. So that's version number one. Okay, now version number two. If you were to ask a Blackwood, they would be like, well, actually, we were the petty kings in the Riverlands, controlling our own, like, little group, and the Brackens were our vassals. Not only that, but the Brackens were just our horse breeders. Get it? Because they like horses. But then one day, the Brackens hired, like, some sellswords or something to help take out the Blackwoods, and then the Brackens named themselves kings, and the Blackwoods were deposed. Mwahaha, mustachio-twirling villainry afoot. Ooh. So yeah, we can't tell which is, true, which is the bullshit. It's probably all bullshit. They were probably neither of them were kings. They probably just hated each other. It's fine. But that kind of, like, cements in place this, like, rivalry without a beginning or end, because no matter what, these families have just decided that they are always going to be at odds with each other. They are always going to be on opposite sides of whatever battle they happen to be on, and that's just, how it's going to be. And so we see through history this attitude just kind of, like, cement itself in place and lead to the continual, like, uprooting and ruin of these houses in this, like, very, like, secular cycle. That was a secular cycle is stupid. You gotta know what I mean. It's a cycle and then they're stuck in it. So each house is constantly, like, claiming supremacy over the other, and then along with that, claiming supremacy, like, over, like, the surrounding land. So if you look at the map here, I'm not really gonna move my thing for reasons, but if you look you see Riverrun is in red. Directly north of Riverrun, you have Raventree Hill. Raventree Hill is the home of the Blackwoods. So that is where one team is at. Now, if you go back to Riverrun and they'll go directly to the right, you have Stonehenge. Stonehenge is the home of the Brackens. So you can see that Raventree Hall and Stonehenge are separated by a river. I believe it's the Red Fork, and then there's a bunch of shit in between them. There's all these, like, little villages and holdfasts, and they're like, well, this is mine. But no, actually, this is mine. But, well, don't you remember this king one time told us it was ours? Blah, 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 blah. Fucking hell, shut up. You get into a room with Brackens and Blackwood, start arguing, and you're just like, I want to die. I want to be not here anymore. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, we have this setup for the feud, and then how it kind of progresses through history. So, eventually, we get more complications enter the villa. We have the invasion of the Andals. So, remember, the Andals are from Essos. They're the ethnic group that comes with the religion of the Seven, the faith of the seven-faced god, versus the first men who had always worshipped the gods of the children of the forest, or the old gods. Now, because we can't just have like these two families hating each other, we need to add like religious dogma into the mix. When the Andals show up, initially, the Brackens and the Blackwoods, they fight together to try to, stop the Andal invasion, but the Andals are a fucking plague because they're awful and I fucking hate them. They think they're entitled to the land because their crazy god told them he was. It's fine, parallels, whatever. But eventually they succumb, and the Brackens, to kind of like ease the tensions with their new like cohabitants, they convert to the faith of the Seven. As do, remember, most of the families south of the Neck. Basically, the North stays all primarily First Men and worshiping the old gods, and then most of the families south of there all eventually convert to the faith of the Seven. One of the big exceptions, though, are the Blackwoods. The Blackwoods keep the old gods, and even keep their Godswood as like a holy place. Now, since we have the new division of the religious differences, we now get some fighting over that. So one of the big things that becomes a point of contention is, as I mentioned, they have a big weirwood at Raventree Hall, which has since been purportedly poisoned and it's died. And if you believe the Blackwoods, this was done at the hands of the Brackens. But because weirwoods don't rot, because weirwoods don't really age, because they like don't, it's weird. I don't know. Like if you keep feeding them and taking care of them, they like survive forever. And even when they die, though, they kind of just like sit there. They just don't like grow any further. So this house, this tree is like still sitting there in the middle as this like just like perpetual symbol of both like the Blackwoods' faith and the fact that like their faith was like injured by the Brackens. And then as we get closer to the present, when Aegon started doing his conquest of Westeros, the Brackens and the Blackwoods were at that point kind of like weakened because they had another recent war between the two of them. So while both of them, I do believe, supported Aegon in taking out House Horror of the Riverlands, which had ruled the Iron Islands and the Riverlands, when it came time for Aegon to pick like a new lord of the Riverlands, he avoided both of those families because like the never-ending fighting, like that would have been a nightmare if he had elevated one and not the other. And then B, they both kind of fucked themselves by continually fighting and weakening themselves in the years preceding the conquest. And so to ease tensions a bit, Visenya arranges a double marriage where Lord Bracken is going to marry a Blackwood bride, and then Lord Blackwood is going to marry a Bracken bride. The idea being like, let's tie the families together and like ease the tensions, yay. But this is the issue, is the families have been doing this for the entirety of their feud. For the thousands of years from the Age of Heroes all the way to the present, the Blackwoods and the Brackens have actually intermarried a lot with this same exact like theory in mind that like if we just like get ourselves like closer, like literally through blood, maybe we'll stop fighting. But it literally hasn't worked. These two families are arguably more related than probably any other two families in the fucking Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, but they cannot stop fighting. They cannot stop fighting because at the end of the day, they are like trapped in this cycle of just grudge holding that they can't let go of. Again, like the origins of the grudge holding aren't even clear, but in its name, continual wrongdoing has been done over and over again, that there is always a fresh memory that someone can latch onto and use as justification to like further harm the other family and therefore harm themselves, through perpetuating that cycle. Also, I'm sure people would have loved for me to talk about Bittersteel, Aegor Rivers, and Brynden Rivers, Bloodraven in this, because they are the continuation of the Blackwoods and the Bracken feuds. But hey, why don't we throw Targaryen blood in the mix? But unfortunately, this video is already getting kind of long. So if you want that to be its own video, please let me know in the comments. Please like and do all the buttons and share. And I know I've been gone, and I apologize for that. I'm still trying to figure out moving and job stuff, and it's really hard. It takes a toll, and I'm trying my best. Okay, I know no one's actually like yelling at me, but like I'm talking to the voices in my head. You know what I mean? But honestly, beyond talking about Bloodraven and Bittersteel, I could do a part 2 on just the Blackwoods and the Brackens because I didn't even get to the freaking present day. I stopped in Visenya. So if you want me to do that video too, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, I hope y'all have a great night and y'all are awesome. Okay, goodbye.